Hello, my name is Keonn Nettles, and the title of my proposed study is Effects of School Uniform Policy on Teacher Expectations. Does school uniforms increase teacher expectations? Introduction. Equalizing the observed financial playing field seems to be an important theme in why some schools implement the uniform policy. Public school administrators are beginning to consider uniform policies to improve the overall school environment and student achievement. In the words of an elementary principal, we want the best learning environment that we can have, so we want to eliminate as many distractions from the learning process as we can. The current study examines how the implementation of a school uniform policy affects teachers' perceptions of students. The problem to be investigated. The researcher of this study seeks to examine the problem of whether or not school uniforms will increase the level of expectation that teachers place amongst their students. Implementation suggests that with the implementation of uniforms, the perception throughout the school changes. The way teachers perceive students may alter due to the adoption of uniforms. The purpose of the study is to discover whether the implementation of the school uniforms increase the level of expectations that teachers have for students. According to Huss, 2007, school uniforms have been around for ages, being utilized by the cornerstone of private schools. It was not until the year 1994 that uniforms in public schools began to gain ground in implementation when the Long Beach Unified School District in Long Beach, California decided to adopt the policy for their nearly 80,000 elementary and middle school students. In justification of this study, research has been done to identify if the adoption of school uniforms increase the expectations of teachers in essence to their students. This study is needed in an effort to research does students wearing uniforms actually increase the expectations that teachers may have for them. The research question is, does the implementation of school uniforms increase teacher expectations for students? The research hypothesis is the teachers will have a higher level of expectations for students wearing school uniforms. This hypothesis suggests the correlation between the dependent variable increased expectations and the independent variable uniforms. Constitutive definitions. Implement is defined as to carry out, accomplish, especially to give practical effect to an ensure of actual fulfillment by concrete measures. Uniforms is defined as dress of a distinctive design or fashion worn by members of a particular group and serving as a means of identification. Expectation or expect is defined as to consider reasonable, due, or necessary. Operational definitions. The implementation of uniforms will be utilized to analyze the research question of this proposed study. Students will be dressed in identical attire in an effort to determine if the expectation of teachers will increase towards students. The results of the study will identify whether teachers' expectations increase due to the adaptation of a school uniform policy. In other words, does wearing uniform increase how teachers feel students should present themselves? Many studies have been conducted to determine if teachers have higher expectations for a specific type of student. For example, according to a study conducted by Huss 2007 that examined a mixture of 6 female and male Caucasian teachers with ages ranging from mid-20s to late 40s, teachers noticed increases in students' academics and motivation to achieve. One of the participants noticed an improvement in student responsibilities within themselves, and another participant recognized that instructional time was being utilized more effectively. Another study conducted by researchers Furman, Smith, and Perry 2006 found that parents and school personnel were united in their perspective of uniforms accomplishing the decreasing distraction aim. A principal said that it gives the kids one less thing to worry about and sweat over. A parent commented that it freezes up some of those mental cycles so they are turned more towards academics, and one of the school nurses agreed. I think that by making everybody come in uniforms, looking alike, it takes away a lot of those different distractions. One particular study done by Chen in 2011, in which he investigated the relationship of students' perceptions of teachers or feedback with teacher expectancies and student self-concepts, suggests that students for whom teachers held to a much higher standard in their academic performances inclined to receive more positive oral feedback. In distinction, students with poor achievement tended to receive low performance expectancies. This observation held valid for academic and non-academic feedback. Research design. Interviews will be conducted with each teacher once a week during their planning period, which lasts 45 minutes. 4 of the teachers will be interviewed on Tuesdays and the other 4 on Wednesdays. There will be a total of 12 interviews over a course of 12 weeks. The conducting of interviews will be every other week. Observations will be conducted in the above teachers' classrooms over the course of 12 weeks as well. The observations of the study will also be conducted every other week and will rotate between teachers, covering 2 teachers per day, Monday through Thursday. During observations, the researcher will sit quietly in a designated area observing the behaviors of the students and the teachers. Questionnaires will be utilized to gauge the perception of students toward how the behaviors of teachers have modified toward them since uniform implementation. Sample. The research of this study shall centralize to a 1st through 8th grade public elementary middle school setting in a city with a population of approximately 65,000. The location of the school is a rural area of southeast Alabama. For easy access, the sample will be populated using convenient sampling for easy access for the researcher. The school consists mostly of African American students with 329 female students and 240 male students. The median household income for families in the district is $29,988, and roughly 65% of the students in the school are considered below the rate of poverty. The average pupil-to-teacher ratio is 24:1. The 8 participating teachers will consist of all of African American ethnicity, with 5 being female and 3 male. The average ranges from late 20s to mid 40s, with each having a minimum of 4 years K through 12 teaching experience. The mean age of teachers at the school is 34, with the average 8 years of experience at 18.5 years. The only pre-qualification to participate in the study is that teachers should have a minimum of 4 years teaching experience. This study will instruct the researcher to utilize interviews, observation, and questionnaires. The interviews will consist of open-ended questions with unplanned follow-up questions to gain more valuable data. Teachers will be asked questions such as, what changes, if any, have you seen or heard in the relationships amongst students and teachers? What changes, if any, have you heard about or noticed in the teaching practices of your colleagues? 8-item questionnaires will be used to gain insight of each individual student. Each question will be designed to measure perception changes post the adoption of the uniform policy, such as, does your teacher seem more prepared for class lessons? If so, in what way? Have you noticed a change in your student-teacher relationship? If so, in what way? What changes, if any, have you heard students discussing about the perception of teachers' delivering of lessons? Observation will be utilized to gain a first-hand account of student behaviors, mannerisms, engagement, and retain knowledge. Teachers' behaviors, mannerism, engagement with students, and methods of teaching. Procedures. The researcher will be the individual collecting data on both teachers and students. Data will be collected on the scheduled interview and observation days for all participants. The teacher interviews will be conducted in their classrooms during planning periods, with only the teacher and researcher present during the allotted 45-minute time frame. All students will be simultaneously given the pre-questionnaire in the school's auditorium before the study and a post-questionnaire after the study. There will be 0 forms of communication during the completion of questionnaires until all students have completed the forms. The researcher will be professional at all times by being courteous to all participants for ethical considerations. The researcher will be flexible in data collection. The researcher will also be accessible to answer any research-related questions that participants may have. No student names will be used during the study, and confidential information will be stored accordingly. For internal validity, students may attempt to act differently than they normally would upon seeing a stranger sitting in their classroom. To combat this, the researcher will begin to observe the class 2 weeks prior to conducting the authentic observations. This should allow students time to become comfortable enough to behave normally. Another potential issue is students may attempt to simply report the same as their peers on questionnaires. Therefore, all questionnaires should be given simultaneously with as much individual privacy as possible. There will be zero communication until all questionnaires are completed. Teachers may attempt to manipulate data by informing other teachers what their questions were during their interview. In an effort to counter that, group interviews will be conducted with open-ended questions with zero debating between teachers. Teachers may also attempt to display favorable behaviors throughout the data collection process. To combat this issue, there will be 2 random days per month that teachers' observations are conducted without the teachers having knowledge of their days and times. For external validity, to examine the external validity of this study, the researcher will have to analyze all 1st through 8th grade public schools in rural Alabama with identical circumstances in an effort to accomplish external validity. This study will be conducted at one of an unknown number of rural public schools and cannot stand alone in generalizing an entire population. Conclusion. The purpose of this proposed study is to investigate if there is a correlation between students wearing uniforms and increased teachers' perceptions. This study is needed in an effort to understand whether students in uniforms bring forth a unique perception that increases the expectation of teachers. Understanding the potential results to this study has the opportunity to not only increase teacher expectations for students, but also increase the equality of teaching. And references are shown as needed.